Hey guys, welcome to Reviews and Recaps. Let's get into today's episode. So, Nephi Tommy got them together for lunch. The food was looking good. I was like, ooh, somebody bring me in. So, Demaria was having a little cute chat with Kovea, and it seems like they were getting along quite well. They seemed really cute. So, Blue went over there to talk to Marcia, and then Marcia is the fashion designer. So, Marcia was like, oh, do you have any animals? And he's like, I have a cat. And she's like, I don't like cats. I'm like, girl, I feel you. I do not like cats. And then Blue was like, it's either a cat or a monkey. And then Marcia was like, she likes monkeys, but she's fearful of them. I'm like, girl, I understand. I don't want a monkey as a pet. And then she's like, she doesn't F with them. I'm like, girl, I feel you. But can I just say all the ladies looked stunning? Anyways, Nephi Tommy walks in, he's like doing his little walk in his white suit. I'm like, one thing about Uncle or Nephi Tommy is he will bring the energy. He's there like, doing his own little dance and twist. I'm like, all right, Uncle, like, you better do your thing. So then Uncle Tommy was like, oh, he's bringing in 4 new singles. And Z was like, girl, I haven't even gotten to know the singles here, and now we have 4 more. So in walks this badass, beautiful looking woman in that green dress. Like, honey, you were hot. I was like, she is serving body, honey. And then they introduced Fabrice and Mac Anthony. So 2 men, they walked in. I was like, okay, all right, okay, cool. Well, and so this week, it's the guy's opportunity to eliminate 1 woman. And so Tommy was like, okay, so I'll see you at the end of the week. And also Tommy said that he was arranging group dates for the new singles. I'm like, okay, that should be interesting. So then over on the other side, Lyndon and Zonique. Zonique is the second girl that came in. She was wearing a jumpsuit. I'm like, okay, sis, like, all right. Give the body. So anyways, Lyndon was like, oh, Zonique came with the vibes. I'm like, okay, girl. All right, Zonique. And then so Mark Anthony started talking to Kovea, and it looked like they were all like smiles. Do you know what? Kovea seems like someone who is bubbly and who gets along well with people, at least on the first interaction. So it was like, okay, so they were both like very giddy and giggly. And then Mark Anthony was like, oh, he doesn't say or refer to himself as a player because players tend to be manipulative, but he's pretty direct. I guess we'll see. It's a weird thing to bring up player in your confessional, which just makes me think, is there something you're telling us, honey, without saying much? I guess that is something we'll have to see as the season progresses. So Kovea went to have like a direct one-on-one outside. They sat down, Mark Anthony and Kovea were sitting down talking. And so then she's like, oh, a lot of it has to do with finances. I'm like, okay, sis, hold off, stop. It almost seems that she is obsessed with this financial thing. And I'm like, don't get me wrong. I personally think, yes, I personally, I can only speak for myself, I like a man who is a provider, who got it like that, and who will take care of me, right? But that's not something I always bring up in the first conversation. But I also understand that, editing could play a part where it is brought up almost like that's the only thing she said, right? But when in reality, she said so many other things before saying that. Okay, so it could be that. But I'm just commenting on what I'm seeing. So and then she's like, I want to be spoiled. And, what do you think about spoiled? And then he's like, you get what you earn. I'm like, sir, what? No. Hell to the N-O. And then she's like, you're scaring me. I'm like, girl, he's scaring me too, honey, because most people that got it like that don't have any issues spoiling you. Like, I've noticed that the ones that complain or talk about spoiling being an issue are usually the ones who are not that financially stable. Because I'm not being funny, but if you got it like that, then what would it cost you to make me feel, and make me feel wanted and go out of your way to get me what I want and just anticipate my needs and take care of me? And don't get it twisted, I'll take care of you as well. But I'm just saying. So he's like, in his confessionals that that's a bit of a red flag. I'm like, honey, you're a bit of a red flag too. Let me just say that. So Zanik was hanging out with three other people, which also included Demario and Z. And so Zanik was like, oh, so how's the experience for you guys? Blah, blah, blah. And then Z was like, yeah, on the first night I was on the chopping block. And Demario basically said that he feels like she's so concerned about being on the chopping block that it's affecting our interactions and everything just seems negative. And I agree. I feel like sometimes when people experience rejection in that way, like it could affect how they then proceed moving forward. If you remember the previous seasons, most of them ended up confronting the guys about why did you send me home? Remember, is it Althea or something from last season? And she was like, why did you guys send me home? Or something like that. Like she was giving them those vibes. So I feel like a lot of women cannot handle rejection. So that's interesting. Over on the other side, Z was having a little chat with this guy with the one hair strand sticking out in front. I don't even know his name, but that hair strand, that thing annoys me, I have to say. So then she's like, having a chat with him, trying to find out pretty much why she was sent home. And then he was like, oh, you were sweet, you were just nervous at times. And then she's like, who wouldn't be nervous in this situation? I'm like, girl, I get it. But the way you're approaching it, I don't know if it's going to have the desired effect, my love. So Jeffrey was out there having a conversation with the guy with the one curly strand. That's what I'm going to call him, Curly. So anyways, they were outside having a conversation and he was like, when we sit together, it's only you. You're the only one I see. We have one-on-one time and, I just focus on you. Next thing, in walks Cynthia, the girl in that green dress. So she sits over the other side and interrupts the conversation. She's like, oh, it looks like you guys are having like a deep conversation. Carly here says, no, you're fine. I'm like, bro, weren't you just saying to Jeffrey that, you're giving her your full attention and whatnot? And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, no. Anyways, he seemed very eager to talk to the green dress girl. Well, Cynthia. So then Jeffrey is saying in her confessionals that Cynthia is thirsty. I'm like, okay, girl. Like, well, you seem bothered, honey. Sorry. It is a game show at the end of the day, right? Like, everyone is here to find love, so people gotta mingle. Sorry, Jeffrey. So she got up. I'm like, okay, Jeffrey. She's like, if he's my guy, then, I'll let him, do his thing and then, come back to me, basically. I'm like, all right, sis, do your thing. So over on the other side, Sue and Blake were having a conversation. So my initial reaction is, why is Blake's body language so closed off? He's not even turning his attention towards her. It's like his body language is turning outwards, and then she's talking to him. And I'm like, And then he's like, oh, I don't even know what to do with you. In my opinion, Blake comes across as closed off. I don't think he's here for love. Like, I really don't get the impression he is at all. And so Fabrice was having a conversation with Miss Cynthia, the popular girl, it seems. So Fabrice was basically talking to her and telling her how he's a phenomenal cook. I'm like, hun, I get the impression. I can't even lie. Like, he just gives me come home to daddy vibes. Like, he's going to cook for you and, and like rub your feet and take care of you vibes. I don't know. I guess we'll see. So Fabrice, which I'm sure his name is not Fabrice, but I think it's Fabrice, but Fabrice because that's how I'm going to remember him. He was basically like with Kavea and Marcia and saying to Marcia that, she's voluptuous. I'm like, okay, guy. Like, the way he was saying it, he's very charming. He's from Haiti. He seems to be really charming and he's like making the girls laugh. So that should be interesting. And then he's talking about, why would you want to spend your life with someone if the sex is not great? I'm like, okay, sir. Like, he's definitely a man of a particular age. But just seems ready to mingle. So anyway, he had a little sit down with Jeffrey and they were talking about like tattoos. She's like, she has a Japanese tattoo that says Goddess Love on her back. And then he's like, he has a tattoo on his back Japanese tattoo on his back. And then she's like, oh, what does he say? It's like, oh, maybe you if you get to know me, you'll find out. And she's like, oh. And then, of course, she's like, well, in her confessionals, like, sometimes she doesn't really know about Fabrice, that it's, it might be a bit too much. But at the same time, she's like, you get her if you're able to mind F her. I'm not going to say the F word, but yeah, you know what I mean. And so that was the end of the mixer. So I don't know if you guys remember that Tommy said he was going to set up a date for some of the guys to meet the ladies. So he ended up setting up a date with 6 men and 2 women. That is just crazy. Anyway, so Blake was there, Demario, Blue, Anthony, Tony. Anyway, so Cynthia walks in like in that badass outfit. She knows she's bad, man. That outfit is cute and colorful. Like, if I ever went to Ready to Love, you guys would be seeing me like really colorful stuff like this because, gotta show them that the body is speaking, honey. So she was like, as soon as she walked in, she felt like she was in the lion's den and Andre was looking at her with like mischievous eyes. It's clear she's like really falling for Andre. I don't really get what they see in Andre. Like, I don't know. If you guys know, let me know in the comment section below. But basically, Demario started asking her questions and like asking her what didn't work in her last relationship. And so she's like, a cheater? That's a deal breaker. Did you see Andre's face when she said that? Guys, if you do not see it, go back and watch it. I think it's like the timestamp is like 12 something. Like, go watch it, guys. She's like someone that is not honest, a cheater, someone who's disrespectful. When she was saying it, sis, I felt her. Like, I could tell that this is from experience. Like, she's been through it. And she's like, I ain't having any of it. Because that's my energy when someone asks me about my deal breakers. So Tony is like, do you have a type here? And he was like, I don't want you to see everyone. And she's like, I'm going to say everyone. I'm like, girl, smart answer. Because if you say one person, then the other person feels some type of way. And then you don't want to ruin your connections. So like at the start, especially if you want to stay on the show. So then, of course, the guys are like, nah. And she's like, wait. The older you get, you realize you don't want to make a decision based on what someone looks like. You want to get to know them. And I completely agree. Then, she proceeds to say she likes tall men, who groom themselves well, who smell good. And then Andre was like, oh, so you like, Andre's the curly hair, right? And so he's like, oh, so do you like dark skin or light skin? She's like, I like them all. So Zonique walked in and she wasn't feeling the fact that like Cynthia was already there with the guys and was already vibing. And I hear that, like, when you're walking into something where the conversation already started and everything is, going well, then you don't want to walk in and then it's like, oh, then change how everything is going. So anyway, she walked in, the guys got up, hugged her and whatnot. And then I noticed that she had this a little bit combative energy that was like, I don't know about that, sis. Like, dial it back. I know you're a bit irritated that they got there without you and stuff. So then the guys asked what her type was, and she was like, yeah, she tends to go for like darker skinned men and taller. So that's pretty much her type. But yeah, she'll take all. I'm like, okay, girl, good for you. So then Andre is like, oh, would you date an ugly man? She's like, well, I've dated men who other people thought were ugly, but who wasn't ugly to me. And I'm like, I know that's right. Not for me, but for most people. So over in the confessionals, Andre is like, when she said she would date an ugly man, I hear her and I believe her. I'm like, I can't, like, that cracked me up. Like, it's like, she's passionate, she's emotional, she's sassy, I believe her. I'm like, girl, not when she said she'll date an ugly man. Stop it. She didn't exactly say those words, for goodness sake. But yeah, that was funny, Andre. Thanks for that. So Andre was like, oh, can you be in a relationship with an alpha male? And then Cynthia was like, yes. And then he's like, are you sure? And then she's like, I'm very submissive. And Andrew was looking at her like, I don't believe you. And she's like, all women can be submissive. And I'm like, guys, do you know what? I actually agree with this. And I say this because I'm someone that most people consider alpha female, right? Or alpha woman, or whatever you want to call it. I don't really label myself as that. But, people do sort of kind of label me as that, right? However, when I'm in a relationship or when I'm dating someone who is alpha, right, and who also has the qualities that make me comfortable. So, someone who is a natural born leader, someone who has a good head on his shoulders, is smart, I trust his judgment. Girls, I be so submissive. I am like, I ain't even worrying about it. I will kick my feet up and rest, honey. Because being alpha is exhausting, honey. Yeah? I would be so submissive. However, on the other hand, when I think about like maybe a last relationship that I was in, and I felt like he wasn't as, I did not trust his leadership. No, I did not trust that he could make the right decisions. I did not trust how quickly he would be able to get things done and sorted, right? So I was not going to relinquish control for someone that I do not trust his leadership, someone that I do not, yeah, it just didn't happen for me. And I was like, So yeah, that's what I would say. I think for me, if I feel like you got it, then I can rest. If I don't feel like you got it, I got it. And then I'm definitely going to leave you because I don't want to be in a relationship where I have to be alpha. Basically, Cynthia was saying about the fact that, she's had to be alpha. She was raising 2 young children by herself. So of course she had to be alpha. But if she finds a man who basically will love her the right way, of course she doesn't want his briefs. He can have his briefs, she can have her panties. And I'm like, yes, girl, that is exactly how I felt. So Andrew was like, initially Cynthia was rubbing him off the wrong way, but towards the end of the conversation he feels like there's something there. I'm like, okay, I guess we'll see. But at the end of the date, Blake and Tony walked Zunique to the car, and I was like, okay, her car looks nice as well. I'm like, all right, girl, you better get your own, honey. And then Andre was walking Cynthia. I'm like, they were all smiles and cheesy, and I'm like, okay, girl, like there might be something there. So now finally they're having one-on-one dates. So Tony decides to have a date with Marcia, and then Marcia came in at those pants of hers. She looked good. I'm like, hips don't lie, honey. And so she's like, oh, I hope I didn't like keep you waiting for too long. He's like, no, I'm like patient and stuff. And she's like, rub up on me a little. I'm like, girl, I know that's right. Like, I feel like a lot of us could have a little bit of like the patience pie, honey. Over on the other side, Z was having a date with Mr. Blake. So she walked in this corset top and the satin skirt. I was like, okay, simple. All right, let's see. I like the top. The skirt with the top I wasn't fully feeling, but okay, whatever. So she walks in and, Blake gets up to hug her. Blake was wearing like a blue tee. He looks all right. I don't know. I don't really see what people see in Blake, if I'm being honest. That hairstyle irks me. Who else does it irk? Let me know in the comment section below. And so Z was looking very uncomfortable. She's a very nervous person. And I feel like maybe the show is not for her because, like, even if you're nervous, don't get me wrong, like, I can feel, like, nervous quite a bit, right? But I appear like I'm not. And I think she hasn't mastered that yet. So she needs to be able to appear like she's good, even if she ain't good. And I think that's something that she needs to appear like, because the thing is, if you're very nervous and it's obvious, you make the other person uncomfortable as well. And Blake even said that he was uncomfortable, and I don't blame him. So then Blake starts asking her questions, who are you? And then she goes on to talking about her family. And then he's like, who are you? And I'm like, he's like, I know about your family. I know about this, but who are you? And I'm like, girl, who are you? Like, what is going on? So anyways, he's just there like trying to ask her questions. And then he's asking her like, what do you like to do? And then she's like, she does hula hoops. And he was like, oh, interested. And I was like, that's the time to tell him more stuff. And then she's like, oh, laughing does for her what orgasm does. I'm like, girl, what is your problem? It's like, we were rooting for you. We're all rooting for you. That's what it felt like. I'm like, girl, stop it. What are you doing? And so in the confessional, Z was like, well, it felt like an interrogation and it just wasn't happening. And Blake honestly looks fed up. Like, I don't even know who to blame. Her personality is a bit weird, I have to say. I don't know if it's to be honest, it just seems weird. Over on the other side, Tony and Marcia seem to be having a good date. They're getting to know each other, and she starts telling him about like when she was younger, she was a problem child. She got kicked out of like so many schools. And she talks about how she was disciplined by like everyone, her parents, her pastors, and everyone. They were just trying to get her under control. But also in that moment, a lot of people poured into her, and she started talking about that's why she has a lot of compassion for people, and that like people who are homeless, like when you actually sit down and hear their stories, you can see that all they needed was someone to pour into them. And I couldn't agree more. And to be honest, that actually is making me like her a lot more. And I'm sure that's probably the same for Tony. So anyways, the food came and Tony was like, do you mind if we just pray and hold hands? I'm like, oh, yes, Tony. So they hold hands and they pray over the food. And I could tell that for her, that was like extra points. So over on the other side, it looks like they were having a bad date. Like Z was not feeling it. Blake wasn't feeling it. Blake was like, she wasn't really opening up. I felt bad for interrogating her, but I felt like I just had to try and get the message out, the information, and she just wasn't budging. I'm like, just leave her alone. I don't think this show is for her. Anyways, moving on back to Tony and Marcia. It looks like they had such a good date. Marcia was like, she's feeling like this is leaving her wanting more, and that she's sucked into Tony's web and she likes it here. I'm like, there's something very grown manish about Tony, and I think that's what she's enjoying. It's that like feeling like you have like a protector, a provider. You don't get it like stress. You can just be like feminine, and I think that's what she's loving. So I guess we'll see. So then all the girls were like all excited to meet the new guys. And like, so Miss Z was wearing this like really short shorts. I was like, okay, girl, show the legs, honey. I liked the outfit. She looked cute. And then Morgan was there and a couple of the other girls. Now let's talk about Febreze, honey. Febreze walked in with this black top, it was the long sleeve top, and this red belt. I wasn't feeling the fit. Like, I just wasn't feeling it, guys. Like, what did you guys think about that outfit? Let me know in the comment section below. So then Mark Anthony walks in, and all the girls were practically drooling over him. They were like, ooh. Marcia was like, I didn't really realize how good looking he is. But like today I'm like, oh, he's good looking and he has a nice ass. I'm like, okay, girl. Quit looking at the man's ass. So one of the girls was basically saying Morgan and Mark Anthony have something in common, and that, and then that they're both from Haiti. And then Morgan was like, 90% of the men she's ever dated were from Haiti. And he's like, wow. So he's probably thinking like, I got a chance. And then I think one of the girls basically asked him like, has he dated outside his race or whatnot? And then Mark Anthony was basically saying that, he has dated all colors of the rainbow, but that his preference is dating a black woman. And that it's just like ordering food on the menu. You like other things, but then the special is the black woman. I'm like, okay, bro. If you say so. But anyways, over on the other side, Fabrice starts talking about the fact that his first job was with Giorgio Armani, and like he's dated all sorts of people, and that then he suddenly starts talking about sex, and in Paris there's practically a lot of sex, and he has to date a woman who has the same sexual appetite as him. And then I was just like, okay, bro, why is it always about sex? And then he's like, oh, he likes to bring up sex. This is in his confessionals. He's like, oh, he likes to bring up sex just so that he can shock women. And that helps him know whether the woman is like comfortable and stuff. So I'm like, okay. And Jeffrey is me. Jeffrey was saying in her confessionals that like, he's too much about sex. And he's like, oh, I've dated young, old, all sorts of women. I don't even know if she did that impression of him or if it's just me, but yeah, too much for her, and it's definitely too much for me. What do you guys think? Do you guys like men who are very, very, very sexual and bring up sex in every conversation? And Sue-Ann basically starts talking about her sexual life and how like previously when she was younger she really thought she was doing the dang thing, and then as she got older she got horny and then realized that she wasn't doing the dang thing then. And that's, I think, and then Morgan was like, oh, she's a bit more experienced. looking over at Jeffrey's face, Jeffrey looks like, oh, this is not table conversation. She definitely looks uncomfortable. I think she is a woman who does not necessarily feel comfortable talking about sex in such a public setting. I get the impression she is like, what is Suan saying? She was not feeling it. But Suwan was definitely feeling Sadie, aka Fabrice. She was like, oh, he seems very experienced. He's lived a certain life and has a lot of experience. So I'm curious to get to know him better. I'm like, yeah, of course, because you both are freaks, honey. And Mercedes was trying to find out like what Fabrice likes in a woman. And, he's like, she has to be the total package. And then he spoke a little French and all the girls were going crazy. Here's the thing, guys. If you're listening to this episode, go and learn a new language, honey, because women love French, women love Spanish. So like, if you can put a little bit of that, not even me about to say German, like German, like, or like one like very international, widely seen as sexy language, honey, like Russian or something. Ooh, women love that. So there you go. Thank me later. Anyways, back to the conversation with the guys. They all were like talking and like getting into it and laughing. And I feel like all the girls were loving Mark Anthony. And I understand he is fine, honey. Like he's cute and he has a beautiful smile. So then they were all just talking and just like, getting to know each other. And then they were talking about the fact that he's in school learning to be a pilot. And so someone was like, yeah, she's a flight attendant. And then he was over looking at Mercedes like, ooh, she hot. And then in his confessionals, he was like, the first person that stood out, really stood out to him was Mercedes. And she was looking good. And I'm like, part of it is because she was where she was seated as well. You know what I mean? Like, she was seated right in front of him and she was looking at him. She was smiling. I'm like, Mercedes understood the assignment. She really did. Then the guys are meeting Tommy. So first of all, Mark Anthony talks about the fact that the lounge was in a church with liquor all over it. That's uncomfortable. I would not like that at all. That's hella disrespectful in my opinion. So Uncle Tommy is basically like, you can see it's a church. You're here to confess, whatever you say here stays in the lounge, all of that. Of course, we know it ain't going to stay in the lounge, but okay. If you say it, if you believe it, I will let you off. Okay. So all the guys, so Uncle Tommy was basically asking them, so which girls like, or which girl do you like, blah blah blah. A lot of them mentioned Mercedes. Lyndon mentioned Morgan, and I'm like, okay. And then Tony said he has a situation that initially it was Morgan. And then he's like, Marcia skyrocketed to 1B. I'm like, ooh, wow. Marcia is really in the runnings now. So then some of the guys were like, Jeffrey as well. And then Andrew proceeds to say, like, if you're ready, she's a wife. I'm like, are all the guys not meant to be ready? I'm like, are you ready, Mr. Andre? And then he starts talking about how he's also getting along with Cynthia and his favorite color was burgundy. But when she walked in the room in that green dress, his favorite color changed. I'm like, I know that's right. That green dress is the one. Like, she killed it. So when he then asked them, like, who are you guys not feeling? A lot of them said Kovea, and a lot of them also mentioned Z. And then the Fabrice, aka Zadie, to some, basically then said he wasn't feeling Jeffrey. She seemed a bit too conservative, and I knew he wasn't going to be feeling her because, yeah, she ain't here for all that sexual talk that he was on. So then Tommy is like, oh, he's introduced something called the second chance lifeline or something like that, which basically means that, like, the guys would get a chance to keep a lady, but the decision has to be unanimous, and it has to basically, everyone has to agree to that, right? That's pretty much what that means, right? And it can only be used once throughout the process, so they have to use it wisely. So the guys decided to take out the girls they had selected. So Blake took out Z again, and Kovea and Lyndon went out. So they both sat down. Blake was trying to basically tell her that, the guys have decided that she isn't ready to love. Well, she wasn't surprised. I don't think anyone was at the stage anyways. Over on the other side, Kovea and Lyndon were having a chat. Lyndon basically said the guys have decided that she's still ready to love, and but that she should tone it down a little bit in terms of saying what she does not want and what she doesn't like and stuff like that. Now, I don't necessarily agree that she shouldn't be vocal about what she wants, but I think the way she can be vocal about what she wants, I think her tone probably needs to be adjusted a little bit, because the guys are starting to feel like she's very combative. It's my way or the highway. And I think that's not what she's trying to put out, but that's what is coming across. So I would say like she needs to probably watch that a little bit, but there's nothing wrong in being vocal about what she wants. And so then the producers asked Z, like, what does she want to be remembered by? And then she's saying, my name is Z, and I'm from New Jersey. And I'm like, girl, what? Girl, what? Oh my gosh, I did not see that coming. I was just shocked, to say the least. Like, what did you guys think about that, her little anthem? Like, what did you guys think? So overall, I thought it was a good episode. I think getting to know them, I can't wait for a few more people to get eliminated, so like it will be easier to remember everyone's names. But aside that, like, it's actually been a really good episode. What did you guys think? I think it's a really good second episode, I have to say. Before you leave, please give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and tap that bell so you have notifications every single time that I post. And yeah, thank you for listening. And also, let me know your views, your comments, your thoughts in the comment section below. Speak to you soon. Bye.